What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. For pretty much my whole video career, I've been shooting on Sony cameras. They're actually pretty standard in the documentary industry. Sometimes you see Canons and in really high-end stuff you might see an Alexa, but the majority of things that I work on anyways are shot on FS7s. I'm actually shooting this video on an FS7 Mark II. With all the new announcements out of Sony, the FX9, FX6, and FX3, not to mention the A7S III, it's been super hard to keep my gear lust in check. I keep asking myself, when is the right time to buy a new camera? And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. When should you upgrade your camera? I think there's two different ways to think about upgrading gear, and it really depends on which stage of your career you're in. In the first stage, you're really just starting out, and the best camera for you is whatever one allows you to start creating without breaking your budget entirely. A mistake a lot of people make when they're just starting out is that they spend too much money on their first camera. They think, the reason I'm not getting jobs is because I don't have a Red or an Alexa, and that's just not true. If you're working at the level where a Red or an Alexa or a camera like that is required, you're not just starting out. I've been making documentary images professionally for over 10 years, and I've only touched those kinds of cameras a handful of times in my entire career. So rushing out to spend $60,000 on a camera like that when you don't even have a reel is a huge mistake. Don't do it. If you're in this beginning stage of your career, the most important thing in a camera is that you can afford it and that it can shoot good enough video. Do you even need a 4K camera if no one is asking you for 4K deliverables? Why not stick with something used that you can buy for half the price? If an A7S II can be bought for $1,500 used right now on Craigslist, why are you spending $4,000 on an A7S III when no one's paying you for your jobs? At this stage in your career, your main priority should be shooting as much as possible and putting together a reel, not owning the best camera. I started my photo career with a used Nikon D700 that, even when I bought it, was already kind of out of date. It only has a 12 megapixel sensor, so it's no one's idea of high resolution. But I bought it because it was the best one that I could afford. I could have possibly bought a much better camera, but then I wouldn't have had any money left over to travel. So I decided to get the used camera that I could afford and spent the rest of the year traveling around and building up my first portfolio of documentary images. When I bought that camera, it was already out of date. I told myself that as soon as I could afford it, I'd upgrade. But actually, I ended up keeping it for over 3 years and well into my professional career. I actually published a couple photos, including a New York Times front page, using that camera. And if you look through my portfolio, I don't think there's anyone out there who could tell me which was taken with a D700 and which were taken with much newer cameras that I got later. Especially in the beginning of your career, no one is going to hire you based on what gear you own. So make sure that whatever it is that you buy, leave some money left over so that you can actually go out and shoot. The point is, don't spend all your money on a camera. It's not going to get you those jobs, but a really good project or reel might. Don't make the mistake of thinking that buying an FX9 is going to help you make your first documentary. I promise it won't. It's your body of work, your reel or your portfolio that's going to get you work at this stage, not the camera that you own. Nobody cares what camera you have. So make sure that whatever camera you buy, there's money left over so that you can actually afford to go and shoot. In the second stage of your career, you're starting to get more regular jobs and you might even be supporting yourself full-time from documentary work. This is when the gear acquisition trap can be the most dangerous. I remember running out to buy a super high resolution photo camera as soon as I can afford it, and then realizing that it actually clogged up my computer and my whole workflow so badly that it made my job harder and not easier. In video production, you need a ton of gear relative to still photos. But the good news is that at a certain level, people will pay you for owning it. At this stage, the first question you need to ask yourself is, will buying a new camera make me more money or make my job easier? If the answer is yes, you might want to think about it. If the answer is no, don't buy a new camera. Simple as that. As a DP on big budget docs, renting my gear to productions is one of the main ways that I make money. I have one price for myself and another price for the equipment. Sometimes the production companies have their own gear and they just want your eye and your body to come and use it. More usually though, they want me to show up with my own stuff. That means it's really important to have professional gear, stuff that you can count on. Often when I'm starting to negotiate rates for a new project, the production manager will ask me to send through a list of the equipment that I have for rent. Basically, they want to make sure that the stuff you're proposing to charge them for is of professional quality. For better or for worse, there's some real brand name recognition power here. Even though stuff might work as well, if your whole gear list is made up of knockoff third-party products, production managers might not want to pay you hundreds of dollars a day to bring it along. So it can be in your best interest to buy brand name stuff, even if it costs a little bit more money. Now, if all you want to do is make your own documentaries, disregard all of that. It's not important. All that matters in that case is results. Does it work for you? I'm talking about when you are trying to charge people money for gear that you own. In that situation, you're much better off owning brand name stuff. I'm definitely not saying that you need to go out and buy an Alexa or a $10,000 case of Titan tubes right out of the gate. That's not it. But make sure your gear is dependable and that you can count on it. This is going to be an investment for you and hopefully make you money for years to come. So what I like to do is find out where the production company's located, get some quotes from nearby rental houses, and then charge them 10 or 15% less. The markup on rental gear is crazy. Sometimes it's as much as 10% of the original purchase price per day. So just by knocking off 10%, you're still earning a fair bit of money and you're giving them a great deal. It's all about making things easy and profitable on both sides. If you can save them the time it takes to actually find and rent all this stuff, plus save them 10%, they just as happily give their money to you. If you charge 5% of the original value of something per day, it doesn't take very long before the camera's free. That's actually how I got my FS7. I was asked to come on a job that was going to last more than 3 months. I got some quotes from local rental houses and realized really quickly that actually we were going to end up paying more than the camera was worth by renting it. If I bought it, I could charge them less than the rental company, and by the end of the shoot, I'd have a fully paid off FS7. That project wrapped and I got to keep the camera. Now I charge productions for it and it's all profit. That's how you can afford things like $5,000 tripods and $8,000 cinema lenses. If you have the volume of work, eventually those things make their money back. I got really lucky by being offered a 3-month shoot with a guaranteed rental every day, but I understand that that's not normal. So when do you decide that it's time to upgrade your camera? I like to stick to a rule I call the 3-time rule. That means that I don't buy something until I've been asked for it at least 3 times. I started out with an FS5 that was amazing. I used it for years on all sorts of projects. But eventually I started to get bigger and bigger jobs and was working for people like Netflix and Nat Geo, and they really wanted me to have an FS7. Once I'd finished 3 projects that had all asked for that camera, I accepted that it was probably the best one for me to buy. Right now, when I look at the FX9, I have crazy gear envy. The images look beautiful, and it's generally just a better version of the FS7. The problem is that no one has asked me for it. That's not to say that people wouldn't be happy if I brought one, but so far I haven't had a single job request where people have turned down my FS7 and said, "We'd hire you if only you had an FX9. It's super tough to keep your gear list in check, and I'm struggling hard not to upgrade. But until it gets to a point where people will no longer accept the FS7, I'm gonna stick to what I have. So to summarize, it's all about understanding what the clients that you want to have expect you to have, and then waiting to make sure that you have the volume of work that can justify a big budget purchase. Recently, I was asked to shoot a job with a 1-day budget of $450. Now that's fine, but they asked if I could bring an Alexa with me, which is insane because that's a $45,000 camera at least. The only reason they would ask me that is because they know that somewhere out there are people who would say yes. That means a young filmmaker has bought a camera that they can't afford and are taking jobs that pay way too little in order to try and pay it back. The economics will just never work out. So wait until you have the volume of work and then get the camera that people have already been asking you for. That's the best way to put your gear to work for you as a money-making tool. Before you start thinking that I'm somehow immune to this gear acquisition syndrome or whatever you want to call it, let me just tell you a story and put that to rest. When I was thinking about starting this YouTube channel, the very first thing I did was go to B&H and fill up a shopping cart. I already own an amazing camera, and I've got all the accessories you need to make a 4K Netflix deliverable high-end dock. In the end, the whole thing was going to cost me over $5,000 US, and I hadn't even made a single video. Now, there's tons of excuses. I'm filming these videos in a small space and it would be great to have a smaller camera that I could move around more easily. There's a ton of reasons why having that camera would have been slightly easier. I was literally minutes away from pulling the trigger and charging all of that stuff to my credit card. Only in the last second did I tell myself to take a step back, sleep on it, and if I still wanted it in the morning, I could buy it then. Luckily, I woke up the next day and I realized that without having made a single video, it was stupid to spend thousands of dollars on gear that would only make my life marginally more convenient when I actually already had all the stuff I needed to get started. If I couldn't make YouTube videos with what I had, I definitely wasn't going to be any better at making them just because I bought a new camera. No camera on earth is going to make you a better shooter. People who are really good at what they do will make a great film no matter what tools they have. With that said, gear can be a really great investment if you're smart about it. So to summarize, when you're just starting out, buy what you can afford. Buy used or buy last year's model, but whatever you do, don't spend all of your money on a camera. Make sure you have some left over so that you can actually shoot something. Use an iPhone if that's all you have. Eventually, when it makes sense, upgrade your gear when you have the volume of work that's going to support it, not before. When people start to hire you, figure out what they want and invest in that. You can try using my rule of threes if you want, waiting until someone has asked you for the same camera 3 times in a row, or make up your own rules. It really doesn't matter. But make sure that you have the volume of work and that you're buying the right tool, not just the newest and shiniest thing because you want it. When a new camera comes out, ask yourself, is this going to make me more money? Will this meaningfully improve the quality of my work? If the answer is no, then wait. Don't buy it. Gear can be a great investment. If you're smart about it, it can be a great way to make money and totally worth it. Just don't start to think that buying stuff will make you a better filmmaker, because it won't. Trust me, I've been there and done that, and it doesn't work. So what cameras are you obsessing over? How do you stop yourself from buying stuff? What purchases have you made that you deeply regretted later? Let me know in the comments down below and we can all feel guilty together. That's it for this video. Hope it helps. Be patient, hold on to your money, and upgrade when the time is right. Make your gear work for you and not the other way around.